Vancouver is well known for its diversity. Diversity in its scenery, recreation, art, and cuisine. I'm Katrina Cotten, and welcome to Indie Corner BC, where we search out and showcase inspiring stories from seemingly average BC residents who have struck out on their own to create their own destiny and success. Join us as we take you on a scenic and cultural tour of Vancouver and introduce you to local and aspiring entrepreneurs with today's emphasis, the Vancouver fashion industry. We will be introducing you to a woman and her company who have been creating sustainable fashion well before it was even fashionable. I am standing in front of the Fashion Exchange in an industrial area of Vancouver near the corner of Terminal and Glen. Just down the street is Kush, where the founder, Angela Saxena, and her team create and design timeless fashions that are incredibly comfortable and oh so versatile loungewear. Just inside these doors, the team at Kush are busy working to complete their next fashion line, which is always challenging. Add to that the company's self-imposed requirement of doing everything in the most eco-friendly and socially conscious way, the challenges compound exponentially. But as you'll see, the founder and her team wouldn't have it any other way. As we discovered during our time with Angela, she is well on her way to seeing all of her aspirations to fruition. Meet Angela Saxena. Angela always had a strong feeling as to what she wanted to do with her life, which was to start her own line of fashion while making the world a better place through environmentalism and socially responsible business practices.
Hi! How are you? Nice to meet you, Katrina.
Nice to meet you.
I loved you on episode 1 wearing one of our rompers.
Oh, yes, and the romper was so comfortable. I'm here for my sizing to try on more clothes, and I'm so excited to feature Kush on this episode.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here. Yes. Let's go.
As the Indie Corner crew set up for our Kush interview, Angela helped me to select a design from her collection to wear for this episode. As I tried outfits on, it turned into a mini fashion show, which was a lot of fun. Here I'm trying on this one-piece tencel knit romper with matching belt. The fabric was incredibly comfortable and so warm, especially with the addition of this plaid cardi coat. This little number is what we decided on for the episode. The color would go well with the locations we had planned for the show.
I know what I've wanted to do for most of my life. From sketching from when I was little to playing with nature and leaves and making little grass bracelets and anything to do with nature. playing around with my mom's saris and fabrics, and just knowing what kind of textures and fabrics and colors that I like. My dad is a doctor. He was a doctor growing up when I was living in Saskatchewan, and he had these huge medical journals. And I used to take his medical journals, and rather than reading them, I would actually draw pictures of medical scenes, and I would draw pictures of nurses with all sorts of dresses and polka dotted dresses and striped dresses, and made it a real fashion scene in this medical journal. That's when my parents knew that I don't think she's going to be a doctor. So the story of Kush, the name is quite interesting because my parents are Hindu, so we're East Indian, they're Hindus, so we always learned a lot about Hindu mythology. And a story that I always loved from when I was little was the story of Kush, which, if you know anything about Hindu mythology, it stems from the Ramayana, which is one of their holy books, and Lord Rama is one of their main gods, and Kush is the two twin sons. And they were sent in exile with their mother to the woods, and they grew up in the woods and they became protector of the woods. And as protector of the woods, growing up, I just resonated with that story. I thought it was so sweet, and I always said that if I have a fashion brand, I'm going to call it Kush from when I was little. I thought that was a good way to actually incorporate my brand name with my love for sustainability and environment with fashion as well. Growing up in Saskatchewan and then finally realizing that my dream was to become a fashion designer and have my own company one day, we were very limited in Saskatchewan, so I moved to Calgary when I was 20 to go to fashion school, which was great because it actually taught us a lot about the creativity and the creative process about designing. And from Calgary, I then moved to Vancouver to go to Kwantlen College, and that was great. That was a very intense 2 years design program. That was in '92. And then from there, I got my first job in 1995. And I actually landed a job in sales, which I ended up loving. And I thought it was really interesting because even though I wasn't designing at the time, it gave me a whole nother perspective to the industry. So the sales training was really important for me as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, because it did allow you to see many facets of the industry that would ultimately make your brand successful. It isn't only just about designing pretty clothes or things that fit well. It really is about the saleability of your garments, and having that sales training was really valuable for a well-rounded perspective of the fashion industry. And having that sales training is crucial to building your business and building your brand. So that's something I would recommend to all aspiring fashion designers, to students, is to don't come out thinking that you have to design right away. You actually should have a bit of a sales training. 5 years later of having the 5 years in the sales training, decided to launch my own wholesale agency. So I left the 9-to-5 job, started working from home. I also decided to start my own brand, which I knew I could actually sell. I could be my own salesperson. And that again was very, very helpful. Some of the struggle was just, again, the time management and making sure that I could have time to find suppliers and build the fashion brand as well as do the selling. But little by little, you get it done, and one thing leads to another, and once the ball starts rolling, then it was rolling. The first sales were very exciting when we actually did start getting those first few sales, and there was a real demand for made in Canada products. So being my own salesperson, I was very experienced with the trade shows, and I'd pack all my samples up and I'd go on the road and I'd go to different stores across Canada, and I ended up driving even down to the States because I'm very ambitious and I wanted to get my brand into the stores down in Oregon and Portland and in Seattle. I actually had a really, really good response. So there was a few years where the business was growing. It was like a nice steady growth. It wasn't instant, but it wasn't too slow. I mean, we were definitely getting sales. And from there, I just kept moving on. So 2008, the market crashed. And then it started snowballing, and 2009, 2010, we had to make a decision. Things were getting pretty tough. Our retail stores were closing. We were getting left with a lot of stock and inventory. People weren't paying their bills, and I had to start to pivot. It was around that time that we also started to think about starting our family. And 2012, I was pregnant with my first child. I knew that I needed to hit the pause button. So I decided to put Lavin Kush on hold and go ahead and start the family. That was met with mixed emotions. I didn't want to see Lavin Kush stop. So that was a pretty natural decision. So in 2012, I had my son, and actually that's when I did start to realize that I didn't really want to be a stay-at-home mom, that there was still the business inside of me that needed to come out. So I actually did decide to hire a nanny and work part-time and start to very slowly resurrect Lavin Kush. Just started doing some research on trends, what was happening out there in terms of fashion. But I think the greatest influence was me becoming a mother, because I still felt the need to have comfortable clothing that was versatile, but also look fashionable enough and look stylish enough and be flattering. And I think that's a challenge still to this day that women have, especially women that become moms. I became my own target market. And in that way, it makes the whole design process a lot easier and a lot more natural. I didn't have to think so much about what people wanted. I knew what I wanted, and subsequently what other women and especially new moms would really value in their clothing. When I restarted, it was challenging because it had been 5 or 6 years. So the new set of challenges were that many of our old contractors and suppliers were not around anymore. They had either closed their businesses or they had retired. So I had to find a whole new set of suppliers and contractors to work with again. Also, I was a new mom, so I had time challenges, and that was a huge thing. I had a lot of time constraints, but I still had this passion as a designer ingrained in my soul to create and to not let that die completely. So it was interesting because I had a nanny, but many times when I would actually go to the contractors, to the factories, I'd have both kids in the car seats and we'd be visiting the contractors. And the kids have actually grown up to know some of these contractors and really like them, because they do get little treats and little lollipops from the contractors quite often. And it's just, it's part of building that community and part of building the local fashion industry. And sort of the sentimentality that comes and the relationship building when you've known contractors for that long. Despite all the challenges, I really felt this time it was meant to be, because I had a whole new direction. And this time it was very authentic and it was very real, and it was based out of necessity to have this kind of clothing. All of the pieces in our line are designed to be timeless and very versatile. Versatile meaning that whether you're walking the dog, you're running your kids to school, you can throw a jacket on later and heels and wear it out for drinks with the girlfriends or out for dinner, and you still feel like you're wearing your softest PJs. I've never really been too influenced by the large designers. I've been inspired by the sunset or by the beach or by the shape of a shell or by a certain texture or certain line on a building, or it's just so many different things can actually inspire me. And sometimes it's something I've seen even out on the street, out and about, out shopping, out walking. I would say a lot of our design though is feedback from our existing customers, because we really like to be in touch with our customers, and that's really important to us, to always be connected to our customer and find out what the women that are wearing our clothes actually want and what they love and what they feel could improve. And that's really the start of our design process. So a lot of the design really comes out of necessity for the lifestyle. So it really can change and morph depending on what our demographic is really doing in their lifestyle. So we might design pieces that were pre-pregnancy, for example, a little bit more body conscious, but now as that woman and that customer has evolved, maybe she's a new mom, the focus has really become about comfort. I always strive to make happy clothes. When we've met our customers at market, or one theme is we find that they are very happy. Women will always say, this piece made them really happy, it made them feel beautiful, and that's really, really important to us. So happy clothes, happy people, and happy planet.
In recent years, the international fashion industry has received a considerable amount of very public criticisms for participating in practices that have been extremely harmful to our environment, also taken on intense heat for being complicit in unfair trade practices. including the employment of the use of sweatshops and child labor in developing countries, all in the name of reducing their costs and improving their profits. But there are those in the biz who, despite these bad actors, have been and still are ahead of their time when it comes to protecting our environment and creating a social, just, and fair system.
In addition to fashion, another big passion of mine was always the environment. And I just, even at a young age, wondered how I could try to marry the two between sketching and creativity and fashion and nature, but I just never had an idea how that could really work. That the fashion industry is the #2 polluter in the world. So I had a lot of internal conflict with wanting to be an environmentalist versus wanting to be a fashion designer, and how I can bridge those two together, because they have been at odds. As a small business, we strive to create that change. And let's face it, fashion is not going away. It's a real problem. The fashion industry needs people who are interested in implementing change to make things better. So in 2007, bamboo had a smaller footprint than some of the other fabrics back then. Since then, there has been a lot of technology and a lot of strides in the industry with fabric. We do try to stay away from animal products because we do have a lot of customers that are vegan. They really appreciate the use of fabrics without using any animal sources. We stay away from wool because there's a huge problem in the wool farming industry with agriculture. A lot of people are not even aware that there is a lot of cruelty involved with wool production, and unless you can really trace where your wool fibers come from, which most of us cannot, we just don't trust using wool. So we choose to really stay vegan with our fabrics. So we stick with the Tencels, which, if anyone knows about Tencel, it's soft. It is a very renewable source. It's a beautiful fabric. It has very soft properties to it. It's very soft to the hand. And it's made in a closed loop process, which is the best thing about Tencel, which makes it very sustainable. It's processed in a way where the water is recycled and filtered before it's released into the water stream. And it's a beautiful, breathable fabric. So we do tend to use bamboo, we use Tencel, we use organic cotton, and a few other blends to make our garments really soft, but also less taxing on the earth. The larger companies are starting to lose their market share as we find consumers are becoming more conscious and more aware of their purchases. They are seeking out the smaller made local companies to purchase from and to support, and we find that really reassuring. More so than ever, we do find that that's a really important aspect that affects the consumer's buying decisions. There is a lot of damage from the big business in the fashion industry, which is, again, fast fashion. What that means is these large companies, these large businesses are overproducing, they're mass producing, and there's a lot of wastage in the clothing, which then ends up in landfills. And it doesn't have to be that way. We do believe in working in small batches with small contractors, ethically produced in Vancouver, where we can actually drive 10, 15, 20 minutes to go visit the contractors ourselves and see how they're doing, making sure that everyone is fairly paid, and that in turn will also help our environmental sustainability mission. In addition to the environmental aspect of the big companies out there producing fast fashion, there's also the social injustice and social responsibility aspect of the whole fashion industry. Not that I don't have ambitions of becoming a larger company. One of my childhood dreams also was to produce factories and to have factories in developing countries and support an ethical wage for our workers, ultimately provide profit sharing. So ultimately our goal is to enrich the lives of others that are working for and with us, to create community impact, to do good for the planet and for the people. That's our triple bottom line. And that actually goes back to the story of Lav and Kush, who were the protectors of the woods. So it kind of becomes full circle back to the childhood dream and the mission. Around the time I started Lav and Kush, which was 2006, 2007, is when there really was this draw towards environmental sustainability and fashion. So people liked the whole story. I think they really liked that there was this woman that started this brand with the mission of being sustainable and ethically responsible in the manufacturing and made in Canada. So that definitely helped to open up a lot of the doors for the stores to come on board. One of our brand pillars is that we do use conscious design. And what we mean by conscious design is we are actively thinking about our whole process and the design when we're sketching things down. Our mission has always been to create fashion, but at a smaller footprint on the earth. But also in the way we design, again, coming back to the conscious design, and try to create pieces that are timeless and classic in nature so that they aren't going to be thrown out after a month because they don't fit the latest trend or the fad anymore. So we want pieces to last in a woman's closet for years to come. And that, again, all contributes to the slow fashion. It's not only about the sustainable fibers, but it's also about a piece of clothing that can stand 5 years, 10 years, 15, and you can wear it to numerous occasions. We have a blog on our website, and our blog serves a few different purposes. It's informative for our customers and for the readers and for the visitors of our website. We do try to put a lot of interesting and fun information on there, as well as a lot of transparency, which is another aspect of our company we're striving to create, is increased transparency. What that means is we want to show people the whole journey, the whole cycle of their clothing, from our factories to the shipping and the packing of their orders, so they can actually see what our company does and they can actually learn how their clothes are made. Another good thing on our blog is we offer educational components to the blog where we can talk about sustainability, we can talk about our fabrics like Tencel, how it's produced. Customers can really become educated about the clothing that they're wearing and what we are producing and why. I want Lav & Kush to be an instrument of change.
Wow, what an incredible experience. I am so glad I was able to connect with Angela and the team. To think many of her inspirations come from beautiful outfits like this. We hope that her story inspires young designers and entrepreneurs to follow her path to success by being true to their creative vision while helping to lower their carbon footprint of the fashion industry. Maybe we can all spread the attitude of our protectors of the woods, Lav and Kush. We hope you enjoyed another edition of Indie Corner BC and a peek into the local fashion industry, along with our efforts to encourage our viewers to make sustainable choices when looking to add to their wardrobe. Join us again for more scenic views of Vancouver and inspiring stories from local independent business owners who are making a difference as they realize their hopes and dreams. Until then, enjoy Vancouver and everything it has to offer.